AMC stock is moving higher today by about 3%. What is also moving higher today is not only inflationary data that might force the Fed to go even more aggressive coming tomorrow, it is AMC's cost to borrow rates. Now, why I'd like to specifically point this out more and more now is because March 14th came and went. You should have seen at least a gradual tick down in cost bar rates, not a aggressive up move in cost bar rates. That is going to show this story is far from over. In this video, we will explain to you guys everything that is happening here on the day, the data you need to know on AMC as well as the markets, and touch on Fed Jerome Powell coming tomorrow. Now, more details will be coming out at 4 o'clock based off of market expectations and what we can expect out of AMC and the markets tomorrow, coming at that 4 o'clock video, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that one. But we got a lot of information to get into. I don't want to waste your time. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Tap, tickle, touch, or smash the like button as well. For the OGs out there, you guys know exactly what I'm saying. Let's get to it, baby. AMC up 2.5% at the time of recording this video. Now, it's a very fluid situation. Today has really been a lot of ups and downs. You had that meeting between Putin and Xi Jinping. I think that's how you say it. I'm not even 100% sure. You've gotten some headlines out of that. It looks like peace talks might be starting soon. That's one reason why I would say the markets are in the green today. On top of that, you got some real estate data, which is very much inflationary, but it shows people are still spending money, and it's like it's good for the economy but bad for inflation. And this might again help force the Fed's hand to raise more aggressively and signal to markets that they are going to continue to raise tomorrow, something the markets are probably not going to like in spite of this banking crisis. Home sales spike 14.5% in February as the median price drops for the first time in over a decade. So yeah, price is going down a little bit, but there's a lot of demand still to buy real estate, and that's still the main sector of the core CPI that the Fed really has not been able to touch. It is services x housing as well as actual housing. It started to come down a little bit, but not nearly where they need it to be to get 2% inflation. That's why the Fed is kind of forced here in between a rock and a hard place, right? Between a cliff and a cliff, I guess you could say. Because on one hand, if they raise rates 25 basis points, then they're doing that in spite of banks literally going bankrupt, which is very deflationary. We don't know the full effects of that. We don't know how much that is going to help lead us into a recession. It very well possibly makes a recession a lot more probable, but possibly going to happen a lot sooner. And they have that obligation to still work on getting inflation down. So it's a very much situation that we have not seen in a super long time. Typically, when you get banks going bust is a time where you don't really have an inflation problem and you can start to cut rates. Think 2008, federal funds rate was 5%. Inflation wasn't a problem. They were just instantly able to cut rates, right? That's not the case here. So if they don't raise rates, which would be the most bearish thing I think could ultimately happen, then you're not fighting inflation. So you're literally stuck between a rock and a hard place, and that's where it's very tough to say with certainty if the markets are going to go up or down tomorrow. Now, I will tell you the average down move off of the FOMC was about 2% throughout 2022. So if you do get a down move, it could be pretty aggressive. The average up move was about 1%. Some FOMC meetings have been a lot higher than that, though. Think to the one we got in, I believe it was September. It was like 7% higher. Maybe it was December, just that day alone. So you can get some very aggressive moves coming tomorrow, and that will have big implications for AMC stock. And you're also going to get the summary of economic projections, which you're going to get a new dot plot, and that's ultimately what I think can help drive a continuing move with the markets, as well as help get a move with AMC. Now, the markets want to be bullish right now. So I do tend to lean that even if we get bad news, it might be priced in and the markets might actually rally. AMC would love that, as it is one of the riskiest, trades you can be a part of, especially being short on AMC. A stock can go as infinitively, right? There's no ending to how high a stock could go. Stock can only go down. So if you're short on AMC right now, doesn't look good on a risk to reward basis, and that might be why the cost to borrow rates are still spiking after a major volatility catalyst. This really should not happen. Now, let's get into some of those numbers. Cost to borrow average at 336%, cost to borrow max at 359%, and if you take a look at Interactive Brokers, we have seen cost to borrow rates vary between 100%, 160%, 130%, 170% ever since March 14th. And they've actually been going up since then. Well, the readings that we're getting today is 196.5%. Exponentially higher, 100% higher than the readings we had before March 14th. That is going to show there's going to be a lot of volatility, and this story is far from over. And it's very interesting because we have not heard, analyst commentary really at all if they think, or I should say what they think is going to happen with this court hearing. We really have not got anything, no updates. So we're in a bottoming process. I would expect to get some of those updates by the end of this week. You'd imagine you're going to get more opinions on this, and that is what ultimately will drive the stock from now until April 27th. You got to remember, it's not probably nothing's going to happen at the first court date. It's probably going to get kicked down the line, and expect a lot of volatility for months and months to come. The option activity for the day, you're seeing 15 orders totaling about $3.64 million, positive order value of 16%. So again, not very atypical for AMC as of recently to be positive by 3% or more and see option activity that is so negative. Although the dollar amount has definitely come down, you were seeing some days $50 million placed in AMC options. Now you're not even seeing a fraction of that. So you're definitely getting some option activity that is dying down. And that can even set us up for bigger moves. Like I said, when the option chain's not so cluttered, you can get bigger moves based off of options that influx with those weekly options. So that is something I would watch out for as well by the end of this week. Another big story with AMC, even though we are not on the threshold securities list anymore, AMC has not seen, I should say, 5 consecutive days of settlements failing yet. We could go back on the threshold securities list anytime, really. You tend to kind of go on it twice. You'll be on it for a little while, you'll go off, and then you'll go back on it as people don't really want to close out of those positions. And failure to deliver numbers are still very high. So if we take a look at what we're seeing today for March 21st, you got about 12 million FTDs that are coming due today. Tomorrow, you're going to have about 10 million. Thursday, 11 million. And on Friday, about 10 million FTDs. So a lot of failure to delivers that still need to come due by the end of this week, and I think that will provide a little bit of a floor even if we do get a negative reaction tomorrow based off of Fed Jerome Powell as well as the summary of economic projections. Again, it's not a guarantee. It's not something I would make trades based off of necessarily in and of itself, but it is an important factor to also consider and to look at. Now, earnings. Can't believe we're still going through earnings. Today, in after hours, you are going to get Array Technologies, Nike, and GameStop. That is also going to be something that can move AMC. Now, to the degree, what the correlation is, I couldn't tell you that. If GameStop does very well, I know it will affect AMC, and AMC will also do well. Vice versa, if GameStop falls, I don't necessarily think that means AMC also has to go down. You kind of seen this the last time around where GameStop was actually falling and AMC was going higher. So I don't think there's a one-to-one correlation here, but I do think if GameStop has good earnings, it will rub off on all quote-unquote meme stocks. But Nike is a very important company. It's considered a bellwether company for the state of the consumer. If you see Nike not having good things to say or their numbers aren't that good, it's not going to look good for the state of the consumer. Now, I will tell you, a lot of analysts are very bullish on Nike. Like, all the notes that have came out today from analysts are bullish on earnings, and a lot of people think they're going to actually raise their guidance. That's going to be an interesting one, and that will move the markets here in after hours at least a little bit, especially if you do get an outsized move to the upside or to the downside. So there you have that. If we take a look at the stock code tracker data for this Friday, and go ahead and refresh this before we go over the numbers, seeing a couple thousand more calls going into the money here today, totaling 21,000 for this option expiration, 112,000 calls that are out of the money, puts in the money at about 90,000, puts out of the money at about 95,000. So you are seeing a decent amount of option activity, but nothing that is really cluttering up the option chain. And, you know, you can get some pretty big moves here still if and after Fed Jerome Powell, people start to buy those options that expire Friday. You could get a lot more momentum based off of those weekly options than seeing an option chain like we had last week that's filled up with options for literally weeks and months. A lot of those are already been hedged for, right? So those weekly options can give you a much bigger move, guys. And there is all of that. There's some other secondary headlines as well, like this one: the Fed is likely to hike rates by a quarter point, but it must also reassure it can contain a banking crisis. This was actually crazy today. Janet Yellen met at the banking committee, right? Forget the actual name of it, doesn't matter all too much. Janet Yellen typically does not move the markets nearly to the same degree as Fed Jerome Powell did. And actually, if you guys were unaware, Janet Yellen used to be in Fed Jerome Powell's seat. She used to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve. She used to be the top dog. But obviously, she's not anymore. She's the top dog of the Treasury. And what's actually funny about that is this is the same conference that in the movie The Big Short, they went to that conference to figure out how bankers were thinking. This is the same conference that she was at giving a speech today. What is the actual interesting part, I just think that's a coincidence, is Janet Yellen would not answer questions just freeballing it. She would not just answer a question. She had to read a script to answer all the questions. Like, it looked so fake. The markets sold off pretty aggressively as she was answering these questions, basically trying to reassure everything's fine in the banking sector. And I don't think the markets really liked the lack of confidence you got from her today. So it's going to be very important Fed Jerome Powell can spitball you some good game on the banking sector, because if he can't, it's probably not going to be a good thing. And they are trying to be very cautious here not to give the markets the wrong idea, right? So that was pretty interesting. Other than that, a lot of headlines coming out from the Putin and China, Xi Jinping, I think his name. I'm not even sure exactly how to say his name. They met today. There's some talks. They want to have peace talks. Probably not going to go anywhere, but we'll see. That would probably be the biggest bullish thing that could really happen right now. That's kind of like a black swan event or a gray swan event where you don't really expect it to happen but could happen, would be the war in Ukraine ending. And I think that would be a hugely bullish catalyst for this market, because you got to remember, there's always a chance Russia misfires and hits NATO and we get into World War III and the world ends. That's always going to be a small probability when we are supplying Russia's enemy with weapons, right? So think about it like that. I would expect to see algorithms trade the markets up quite dramatically if that were to happen. Does not look likely, but still, got to put that here in this video. Now, as far as AMC on a technical basis, you have broken above the major level in which we've been talking about. It's the downtrending line that we have had for literally years here. That has been the rejecting point of every single rally ever since June. You've gotten rejected at this line, and this has showed you were in a downtrend. At the same time, you found support at this bottom line. You're well above this bottom line now. If we go ahead and extend that, And now you're above this long-term resistance level. So I think that is a very good thing. AMC making a move higher here today. We'll see what happens by the end of the day. We will be back to talk about everything you need to know about tomorrow and how potentially you can make a lot of money trading Fed Jerome Powell. So that is going to do it for this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.